All right, our next type of tissue is nervous tissue. And you'll like this one because there's not any subtypes, and so it's just one type of tissue. And so if you'll look at it, this is how it looks under the microscope. Looks like some sort of blobby creature, and it's surrounded by these little dots we'll talk about in a second. So what is the job of your nervous tissue? Well, it's to conduct electrical impulses. And so it's going to take in sensory, it's going to integrate it, and it's going to send out a motor signal. So information comes in, it integrates it, and then there's some sort of movement involved. So it's our communication center. So where do we find this? We find this in the brain, the spinal cord, and in our nerves. So those are our locations. And so it contains two main types of cells. It contains a neuron, and then these little tiny cells here, which are called neuroglia cells, or also just glia cells. These little tiny, these are cells and not nuclei. This is the neuron you've got going on here. So that's not showing up real well. But so these little tiny things, we used to call them just helper cells, but what we've learned is they play a huge role in keeping the debris off of the neuron. And so for Alzheimer's, these little neuroglia cells, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the nervous system and which of these neuroglia cells play a big role for helping us prevent Alzheimer's. Okay, so they're tiny, but they're mighty at that. All right, on we go. So here's just another picture. I love this one. So in lab, you'll see these. We've got some cross sections of some brain, and you'll see these beautiful neurons with all these little neuroglia cells going around. So I would like you to know the three main parts. We'll learn this much more detail when we get to the brain unit. So we'll go ahead, and this is a neuron that you're looking at here. So this is a neuron. And it is what type of tissue? It is nervous tissue. So if I ask for tissue type, so it has three main parts. It has the cell body, which is this middle area here. These little things coming off of it are called dendrites, and the signal comes into the dendrite, goes to the cell body. Cell body is also known as the soma. You'll see that. So the soma or cell body, and then it starts to exit through the axon. We'll learn much more detail when we get to that chapter, but we're going to go ahead and just learn those three main parts: the dendrites, the soma or cell body, and then the axon. These are the part of the axon as well. And so the models that we have that would have nervous tissue, we have a model of a neuron. So if you see this and it says what tissue type, you would say that's nervous tissue. And then of course this is the brain, and if I say what tissue, of course that would be nervous tissue. Again, we'll do a whole chapters plural, on the nervous system, so we'll get to see that quite a bit. So that is for all you need to know for now about the nervous tissue.